Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Village Board for September 16th, 2019. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Simpson, roll call, please.
Trustee Vito?
Here.
Trustee Papantos?
Present.
Trustee Lang?
Here.
Trustee Kruger?
Present.
Trustee Vogel?
Here.
Trustee Rufato?
Here.
President Horker?
Here. You have before you the minutes for the regular meeting of August 19th, 2019. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Vogel, second Trustee Kruger. Roll call.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes this evening.
Proclamations?
None.
No oaths. Citizens' concerns and comments. Clerk Simpson.
Members of the public may address the board with comments regarding only those items that are relevant to village business. No citizen shall speak for more than 5 minutes without consent of the board. Members of the general public who wish to address the board must sign the request to speak form prior to the commencement of the public meeting. Mr. Bowsley?
Just as a reminder, this is a time for citizens to make comments and express their concerns and opinions, and for the board to listen. Neither the board nor the staff will be answering questions.
Hi, my name is Tom Bauslug. I'm a resident of Wheeling for 42 years. However, that's not why I'm here tonight. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Wheeling Rotary Club. And if no one's familiar with Rotary, let me give you a brief introduction. Rotary is an international charitable organization. We have several international projects. The three main ones are to end polio, potable water, and literacy. We also are divided into districts. Our district is northeastern Illinois. Our main project there has been digital x-ray equipment for Guatemala. And then our own club locally at Wheeling, we have several smaller projects than those, but they include donations to Children's Heart Foundation, Thanksgiving Food Drive, Wheeling High School Scholarships, Wheeling Literacy Programs, Wheeling Senior Citizens, Coats for Kids, PADS, which is now called Journeys the Road Home, and we assist at Indian Trails, and we have a youth program for high school kids. We're here seeking support from the village and the community. We've received such report in the past from some of you. Mr. Vogel, thank you for your support in the past. But the reason I'm here is we're having our annual fundraiser on November 5th, 2019. It's what we call a Calcutta. It's at Chevy Chase Country Club. We only put our hands out once a year for help from you, and this is the time that we do it. But what makes this unique and why I'm here tonight is every year we try to honor someone who's made an impact on the community. But this year it's a past member of our club, and it's Judy Abrascato who's going to be the honoree this year. There are numerous ways you can support us and help us. You can buy a dinner ticket and come for dinner and then participate in the activities that night. You can buy a ticket for $100 and put yourself in the Calcutta, which we give away half the proceeds, maximum $5,000. And then we also have the usual 50-50 silent auctions and those sort of things. So I hope you'll support us. If anyone is interested, you can contact Bruce Piepenbrink at Hoyne Savings. You can contact Rich, who's behind me, or you can contact myself at my office, which is 847-459-6585. Most of all, we'd like for you to attend and buy a dinner ticket and participate in the activities there, but we also would like for you to buy one of our Calcutta tickets for $100. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other?
No, that's it.
Staff reports. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you, President Horker. Some of you may have noticed driving up and down Milwaukee Avenue that the work has begun on the replacement of the gateway signs. We have 12 gateway signs. The board will be familiar with this project, which started in earnest probably a year and a half ago now. There's one shot of the sign of Milwaukee Avenue after it was removed. The installation work is beginning this week. The foundations for the signs will be underway shortly. We expect that the signs, you'll start seeing the signs pop up the following week after the foundations have cured. So we have planned in the first or second week of October, we're planning to do a ribbon cutting at one of the sign locations. It will be the sign on Elmhurst Road. Felt that that was probably the most accessible in terms of getting everybody out there. So first or second week of October, we'll have a ribbon cutting event at the sign on Elmhurst. We'll send out a more formal invite to the board and the Plan Commission once we have confirmation that the installation will be complete at that location. So just a couple of quick photographs. The photograph on the left is the signs. After they were constructed, they begin the rusting process at the shop. So those are the signs that have been set aside after the rust has started to form on the Corten steel. And then the image on the right is the mock-up that they did for us to illustrate in the shop how the lighting effect would look. So they put that together for us so we could confirm that the lighting met our original design standards. So happy to answer any questions you might have, but we're very excited to have this project finally underway.
Trustee Papantos?
Are we going to put this on our website and Facebook page so that people can see the pictures and on TV?
Once the first one is installed, we'll absolutely be doing that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, Mr. Janik, over the course of the last week or so, I think we've had about 7 or 8 inches of rain. Why didn't Wheeling Road flood?
Wheeling Road did not flood because of the investment that Village Board agreed to, or the money that the Village Board agreed to invest in storm sewer improvements. Yes, we did. Over approximately 26 to 28 hour period last week, Thursday morning, early Thursday morning through Friday morning, up till about 5 o'clock in the morning, off and on rain. We did receive substantially more than 6 inches. Our system and our various investments, pumps, piping, work by Public Works personnel, as well as our equipment, we were able to reduce substantially the typical sort of flooding that Wheeling has seen in the past years. Wheeling Road did not flood. Jackson Drive did not flood. The basin there was probably 90% full. The basins rose up and they got full. Longtree included. The Ridgefield basins acted extremely well. Sand Pebble did not get much water. Polo Run did not. Typical areas that you previously saw flood did not, and we're very thankful for that. We did not receive, I'm sure a couple people or a few people might have gotten water in their basements, but we did not receive any phone calls as such, nor did we receive any relative to sanitary sewer, which we have done some work on to make sure we avoid some of the sanitary sewer backups. So we got through this one relatively well. It was probably a 40, maybe 50-year storm, and we're thankful. So we're going to keep working to make sure, or try to make sure that flooding is reduced.
How about Dunhurst East?
Dunhurst East did very well. We had one area on Audrey that had about a foot of water for probably maybe an hour and a half. And then we had at one location in West Dunhurst over at the corner at the intersection of Norman and Fletcher, which had approximately 1.5 feet of water, probably for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We're working on that location. Audrey, we're hoping is going to improve when we do the Eastwood Trails project next year. But East Dunhurst did very well. I've seen some barricades out. We have some special barricades now that help the situation as well.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Janik. And really an amazing difference from just a few years ago. Nice work. Clerk Simpson, consent agenda.
Consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered after all of the other agenda items. 11A, resolution authorizing acceptance of a National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Illinois Department of Transportation Sustained Traffic Enforcement Program grant through federal fund fiscal year 2020. 11B, resolution authorizing the village president to execute a settlement agreement and mutual release in the amount of $34,000. 11C, resolution accepting a proposal from Hager Engineering LLC for consulting services involving the 2020 Street Improvement Program in the amount of $118,500. 11D, resolution accepting a proposal from Hager Engineering LLC for consulting services involving the 2020 Streetlight Replacement Program in the amount of $48,500. Item 11E, resolution authorizing execution of a right-of-way use agreement between the Village of Wheeling and Zale Group LLC. 11F, resolution authorizing the police chief to execute the grant funding agreement from the Illinois State Police Office of the statewide 911 system in the amount of $237,605.36 for next generation 911 infrastructure. Item 11G, resolution authorizing the village president and clerk to execute a master license agreement with Verizon relative to the installation of small wireless facilities on village property.
Thank you, Clerk Simpson. I need a motion for their approval unless there's any questions or comments.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Trustee Rufato, second, Trustee Papantos. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. New business, Clerk Simpson.
Okay, 13A, resolution authorizing a jurisdictional transfer agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation, IDOT, associated with the reconstruction of a section of Wolf Road within the village.
Could you read B and C also, please?
Okay, 13B, resolution authorizing the village president to execute a cost participation agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation, IDOT, associated with the reconstruction of a section of Wolf Road within the village of Wheeling. 13C, resolution approving the apportionment of funding for additional costs not covered by the cost-sharing agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation, IDOT, associated with the reconstruction of a section of Wolf Road within the village of Wheeling.
Mr. Janik, you want to explain what this is?
Yes, this has been a project that's been discussed for numerous years, probably over 10 years. It's a jurisdictional transfer of a section of Wolf Road that runs from the intersection of Wolf and Milwaukee Avenue south to a location about 300 feet south of Manchester. Previously, the village agreed to a jurisdictional transfer of Wolf Road south of this section down to downtown past Marquardt. That road was reconstructed, just like this one's going to be, was reconstructed, made out of concrete. It was widened. This section of road is not going to be widened as much, but it's the same idea. Right now, this road is the jurisdiction of IDOT. They plow it. They take care of it. Excuse me. I shouldn't say they take care of it that well, but they do attempt once in a while.
It's their responsibility.
That's their responsibility. That's correct. As a result of this jurisdictional transfer, if the board agrees to it, we would take over responsibility for this roadway. We take responsibility over for the plowing, for the salting, the right-of-ways, sidewalks, that sort of thing. This project is approximately, it's over $12 million in cost. It's a reconstruction that will result in a 3-lane roadway, not a 4-lane roadway. The lane in the middle will be what's called a suicide lane or a turn lane up and down the roadway. Now, the north part of Wolf Road is it's almost like a 4-lane road in some sections, and that will remain the same. But generally speaking, the balance of Wolf in this section will be a 3-lane road. There'll be some other improvements, such as improvements to the traffic signals at Dundee Road and Wolf, as well as what's called the temporary signal at Strong. Strong will become a permanent signal now, not temporary. It will have mast arms, just like normal lights will, signals will. The sidewalks, and there still will be sidewalks on both sides of Wolf. They'll either be repaired or new ones will be installed up and down the entire length of this roadway, or this section of roadway. And like I said, we'll be taking over responsibility of all of this. Now, the road's going to look a lot different, particularly south of Dundee Road, well, both north and south. The ditches will be gone. There'll be underground storm sewer. Fire hydrants will be relocated, that sort of thing. So it's going to look a lot different, and some people's properties, they'll feel like they were impacted, but some of those properties use right-of-way right now for, say, driveways, and those areas will be part of the right-of-way, and they will really not exist anymore. They'll be part of the roadway itself and or parkway on both sides. The cost of this, the memo indicates the cost has increased, but what IDOT did was they actually increased our costs by approximately $24,000, but then they also included work that we would have had to do anyway, relocation of some of our hydrants and relocation of our streetlights at the intersection of Dundee and Wolf. That's why the cost went up from approximately $225,000 to $360,000. To us, this is fair. There was a slight cost increase, but then, like I said, they did include some work that we would have had to do anyway. So in front of you is a jurisdictional transfer agreement, a cost participation agreement, and then also a supplemental cost agreement, which means that if, in fact, the cost is above $360,000, that we agree to pay the overage. Now, we know there will be some utility costs above the $360,000. We do have a substantial amount of money in the CIP to pay for that. It's approximately $900,000. So we have planned for this. We don't expect it to be anywhere close to that. We're expecting possibly another $150,000 in costs. So we should be far below our budget. But that's what's before you tonight.
Trustee Papantos, you had some questions?
Thank you. The jurisdictional transfer, as far as the village taking over the plowing maintenance, when does that go in effect? Once the road is done, or?
Yes, once the road is complete.
So this winter, it's not our road to plow?
That's correct.
And when I came here today, the road is substantially marked up.
Correct.
Do you know what they're doing?
You know what? I'm not really sure what they're doing. Typically,
I don't think the state is either.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, what it means when they mark that out is that they're going to, I mean, on typical roadway, they're showing areas that need to be undercut and then repaired. So I'm not sure what they were doing over the weekend with those locations, because that would seem to indicate that they're just going to repair the road, like I said, with undercuts and change it out. But it doesn't make a lot of sense that they're going to start the work, say, late this fall or early next year. So we have a phone call into IDOT asking them what all those markings are for. Possibly they're going to repair before the winter, because they know the road is so bad. But that's what those marks are typically for.
Okay. And then you touched on it briefly, the time frame on this. So they will, once we sign and everybody's happy, they're going to let the contracts?
They have to bid the contracts, let the contracts out for bid, and then get them back. So we're expecting that this goes forward, that they won't start any work until the spring of 2020.
Do you know when they start work, where they're going to start? Are they going to start at the south end or the north end, or?
Our belief is that they're going to start at the south end. This agreement also has a one-way traffic for approximately 6 months, the first 6 months of the construction, because of the problems with having two-way traffic and doing the reconstruction. But our information from them so far is that they would start at the south end and go north.
And School District 21 is aware of it because of homes?
We will, I mean, I think they're aware of it, but we will be definitely letting giving them information about this once we know that they bid the contracts out and we know for sure the project is going to go forward and when they're going to start.
And one last question, sorry. The crosswalk that's basically from Holmes to the Park District to Heritage Park is the type of crosswalk, it's only, you only stop if there's a crossing guard there, so there's 2 people on the sign, that's how I was told. Since it's going to become our road, can we do a full stop like on Northgate for the crosswalk? Because anybody who lives in Meadowbrook East and down in that entire section legally can't get across Wolf Road to get to the park. And a lot of people like to go to the park.
Once it becomes our road, we can't.
I realize it has to be our road. And
Yes.
the state would not. So we would at least consider it at that point. Thank you.
There's the Uniform Manual on Traffic Control Devices requires a study before you do anything like that on the road. So the police department would have to go out there and actually develop a warrant for that kind of a stop to see that it's necessary.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Furlow. Any other questions or comments? I need a motion to approve.
So move.
Trustee Lang?
Yes. Second.
Second, Trustee Rufato. Roll call, please.
Is this for A, B, and C, or just?
No, we're going to do, I'm sorry. Let me be clear about
This is
this.
A.
We're going to do one at a time. This is for A.
Okay. Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, now
Item B.
now item B.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Papantos and Trustee Vogel. Roll call, please.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, and C, the TIF.
So moved.
Second.
Krueger and Papantos. Trustees Krueger and Trustee Papantos.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, thank you all. Item D.
Item D, ordinance authorizing a redevelopment agreement between the Village of Wheeling and Victor Torishnyak for the development of land at 966 South Milwaukee Avenue, Wheeling, Illinois, comprising a part of the Southwest 2 TIF District of the Village of Wheeling, Cook and Lake County, Illinois.
Thank you. Mr. Malenefi.
Thank you, President Horker. As you recall, staff received a request from H2O Car Wash, the owners of the former Gators Bar and Grill property located at 966 South Milwaukee Avenue, for the village to provide TIF assistance for the demolition of the vacant facility. Once demolished, the property would be redeveloped into an H2O Car Wash development that was previously approved by the village board. The village board actually gave us consensus approval for staff to create a redevelopment agreement to reimburse the owner for 70% of the demolition costs following the construction of the car wash. The property is located within the Southeast 2 TIF district. It meets the criteria for commercial blight. Demolition costs are therefore TIF eligible. The owner provided demolition estimates from 3 companies, and the owner determined that McDonough Demolition, the contractor, would provide the services required. And the village attorney prepared a redevelopment agreement which states the following. The village will reimburse the owner developer for up to 70% of the contract cost, but the reimbursement amount will not exceed $70,000. The owner developer will not be paid for the reimbursement amount until the H2O car wash is constructed in accordance with village approved plans and village code, and a certificate of occupancy is issued. The owner or developer has to apply for all permits within 120 days of approval of the redevelopment agreement and must begin construction within 90 days of receipt of the last permit, and must complete the construction within 16 months of the commencement of construction. and the demolition work must be completed by December 31st, 2019. Economic Development staff is recommending approval of funds from the Southeast 2 TIF District to be utilized for the demolition of the property to facilitate the development of the H2O car wash. The applicant is here. Should there be any questions, or I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Do we have any questions? Trustee Papantos.
Sorry.
Please come to the microphone, identify yourself.
Good evening. Victor Torishnyak.
Hi, Mr. Torishnyak. I just want to be clear, you understand the deadlines for starting and getting this done?
Yes.
So that we're not going to have something sit for another year?
Yes, until the end of the year, it should be demolished, and we will be reimbursed only after the car wash is constructed.
And you will start construction, apply for your permits and start construction
Yes,
within the time frame?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Any other questions from the board? If not, we need a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Trustee Rufato? Lang.
Trustee Lang, okay.
Second, Trustee Papantos.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, good luck, sir.
Thank you.
E.
E. 13E, ordinance amending Chapter 4.32 alcoholic liquor dealers in Chapter 4.08 licenses and permits of the Village of Wheeling's Municipal Code to create a Class C-LC license to authorize later operating hours at taverns, to create a Class J-1 liquor license to allow service of alcoholic liquors at cosmetic service establishments, to modify the requirements of the Class D4 license, and to increase the fee for the Class NV license.
Mr. Sfondilis.
Thank you. Before the board this evening are a number of new or modified amendments to our liquor code that is based on the conversation and direction provided by the board from the last public meeting. I will review just the highlights of those and then ask the board two questions. The only thing that the memo didn't address was the setting of price for two of the items. So at the end of this, we'll ask for your concurrence with the way that the ordinances were written, which would be your approval. They would be signed into code, and we will ask that you fill in the blanks for the specific value of two of the licenses. So at a high level, there are 5 specific changes that are being made. The first allows taverns to remain open until 4 a.m. The second allows certain cosmetic service establishments to offer complimentary beer and wine. Third is to modify the requirements of the D4 license. Fourth is to increase the fees of the Class NV license. And finally, adjusts the range of fines that the Liquor Control Commission can impose. Certainly, I can go through each of these. Perhaps it makes more sense just to answer questions. If the board has any on each of the sections, we can go down the line or simply open up for discussion.
Trustee Papantos, followed by Trustee Rufato.
Right, on the
We have to share it.
time frame for the adjustment to the NV, that would be definitely with the next cycle, right?
That's correct.
Which is May 1st?
Correct.
And also on the D4, when would that go into effect?
The same.
Same, thank you.
Yes, all of those changes would be effective as of the next license cycle, which, as you say, expires April 30th. The new cycle takes place May 1st.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Trustee Rufato?
Thank you. Section G, the lowering the minimum penalty, and that's for businesses that have operated for many years. So what is the definition of many years?
That is an excellent question. It was written this way to allow the commission some leeway. The answer to that question has shifted, and we believe that that makes the most sense to give, like I said, the commission the opportunity based on the incident itself and the particular establishment.
The incident itself, the severity, is that what we're
Correct.
saying? I'm still, well, I'm personally uncomfortable with many years. It just doesn't, to me, I would much rather have it black and white and have a matrix. If you're here 0 to 5 years and you have none, and, you know, maybe then we get into what is a severity type issue. So I'm uncomfortable with that as it's written with the many, I know it's not in the code that way, but in the code, it just indicates that we're lowering it to 250. And it really doesn't say much about how many years an establishment has been in business.
We've never, Trustee Rafael, we've never included that kind of language in the code. The Liquor Commission has always considered all the factors that were before it when determining whether or not or what fine to levy, whether or not there'd be a suspension, things of that nature. There's never been a formal fine structure per se. This is simply lowering the minimum. There is a lot of discretion involved in terms of evaluating violations and the evidence that's presented. So the term many years was put into the memo to the board to help you understand that in the case of a long-standing license holder who gets, who's hit with a violation, that's really sort of a mitigating factor. We've had multiple years of no violation, and then a violation comes along that may be the second in 10 years, that's not as bad as the second in 2 years. And that's how the board or the Liquor Commission evaluates things. So there's, I think it would take I'm not sure you want that level of specificity, and you don't want to give away that kind of discretion, which the Liquor Commission has, I think, to come down heavy on someone who's a violator with aggravating circumstances, and also conversely to go easier on a good corporate citizen who has mitigating circumstances. So I see where you picked up the term many. It's in the descriptive memo.
Right.
It's not in.
Right, it's not in the code.
Right.
I
Yeah,
noticed that.
so I think this is, this just lowers the minimum.
Well, then
That's
I
just
can-
some background, that's all.
Yeah, thank you for that background.
Sure.
It's a little easier to understand the thought process there. And then my only comment about the video gaming fees, that's a 42% increase in the fees for the video gaming. Just seems hefty in my view. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rufato. Any other questions or comments? We do need to come up with some sort of a consensus on the fee structure then?
Correct. For the Class CLC, which is the opportunity for a tavern to remain open until 4 a.m., staff recommendation, again, information was provided in the packet to give you the average and median. Staff's recommendation is $2,500 annually.
Does anyone, should I just, Trustee Papantos?
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify, that's $2,500 annually in addition to their C license?
That's correct. That's correct.
Or
This is
CV.
specifically for the ability for a tavern, which is a Class C, to operate from the hours of 2 a.m. to 4 a.m.
And right now, we have 2 of those,
We have 4 taverns.
4 of those.
And the approval of a license is still subject to amendment of their existing special use.
I'm just going to poll the board on this one then. Trustee Vogel, how do you feel? 2,500?
2,500 is fair.
Trustee Papantos?
2,500.
Trustee Vito?
What's the base of the C? What do they pay now?
25.
2,500.
To double it for 2 hours? I mean, that's steep. I say no. Less, grand, maybe. Whatever.
This is your
500 bucks.
policy, I don't know.
I mean,
Well, let's see if we can,
to double it to stay open 2 hours later when no one's going to be in there anyways.
well, or where you're going to be the only one
Business
open.
decision.
Yeah. I don't know. All right. I mean, I think it's steep.
Well, let's see what the rest of the other side feels.
Yeah, I'll be outvoted. I'm aware.
Trustee Lang?
No, you're not. I'm kind of leaning with Joe on this
All right.
one.
Well, thanks.
So I think, what'd you say, 1,000?
Sure.
somewhere in between, if anything.
Trustee Kruger,
2,500.
trustee Rufato,
I also think it's steep. I think it's around 1,000 for the additional 2 hours, something that I would agree to.
I don't, so that's 3 to 3 as far as 2,500 versus something less. I was actually looking at the 2,500 as the average, and I do look at it like they are going to be the only ones, you know, there's going to be a limited supply during those hours. I can see where maybe it wouldn't have to be the 2,500. I would be amenable to a couple thousand, but, so I'm going to run the board back from my right to the left, and 2,000, trustee Rufato.
It's better than 2,500. Yeah, that's fine.
Trustee Kruger,
I could be okay with 2,000.
thank you. Trustee Lang,
Sure.
trustee Vito. 1750. Let's see how it goes on the other side.
I'll go with the 1750. I think that's fair.
I'll put you guys at a no. Trustee Vogel?
2,000.
Okay. I'm going to stick with the 2002. Sorry, trustee Vito and trustee Papantos. 1750 was a generous offer, but we've been bid 2,000 and you've been outbid. That leaves us with the salon fees.
This one might be a little easier to swallow. Staff recommendation, again, providing the background for average and median from other communities, is $250 with no initial fee.
But what's there? There's a median. Well, anyway, okay. See, I was actually in favor of the 333 that was the average.
333 was probably the average, not the median, yes.
Yeah. But we'll go with the 250 and see.
Correct.
How the board
Median's
feels.
250.
Trustee Vogel?
Just a quick question. Wasn't the initial fee to cover our costs for background checks and et cetera? So we're waiving our costs and charging them a very low fee on top of it?
Simply because these businesses do not already have a liquor license, and anything above, we felt 250 is really pushing away anyone who would want to do this. So if we're going to have it in the code, you know, we thought it was a entry to barrier, or a barrier to entry.
I think 250 is too low.
So the median was 250 and the average was 333.
Correct.
Can I ask a question that doesn't have to do with the fees on the J1s? Sure. Will nail technicians need to be Bassett trained? Will anyone in the salon need to be Bassett trained?
Yes. I think it's just the manager, though, correct?
Yeah. We don't have servers per se. I
Right.
think the manager would cover it.
Okay.
To Trustee Vogel's point, these fees really are set up, one, to cover administrative costs, or perhaps, say, to the last point, you know, one call by the police department is more than the fee that's charged annually. So we try to be fair and at the same time cover any cost to the taxpayer for the administration of either the fee or the permission that comes with it.
Sticking with more than 250?
I'm going the other way, that I think this 250 is actually a little high for a salon on something like this. They don't make a lot of money in a salon area, either a nail place or a hair salon. And I'm afraid that we're going to have people sneaking it because it's already done and, you know, nobody's going to raise the question. But I would not go over 250.
So you're for less, Dave Vogel's for more. Joe Vito? Trustee Vito?
Yeah, 250 is fine.
Trustee Lang? We'll get there.
Yeah, 250.
Trustee Kruger?
250?
Trustee Rufato?
250.
I'll go with the 250 just to wrap this one up. So with those amounts installed in the code as written, that gives us a Class C and CL late closing fee of What was it, 2,000?
2,000 for the CLC and 250 for the J1 salon
Okay, so I need a motion for those items installed
with the fee amendments.
with the fee amendments.
So moved.
Motion, trustee Lang, second.
Second?
Trustee Kruger, roll call, please.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Rafato?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, thank you all.
Thank you.
Item F.
Discussion regarding major site plan and appearance concept review of Spa Forest, 350 East Dundee Road.
Mr. Spondilis.
Thank you. As this is a concept review, I will go over the various stages of the discussion. This is more for the petitioner just to be aware of the way that we handle our concept reviews for equity between all the conversations. The current request is for a non-binding approval of the site plan and appearance. The feedback by the board will be used by the development team as a guide in the preparation of the formal development plan. The outcome of this evening shall not constitute a formal approval or denial of the application. The decision by the board tonight is non-binding and shall not prevent the applicant from moving forward with the formal application. Community Development Director Jennings will present an overview and introduction of the petitioner. The petitioner will follow. Director Jennings will then again follow up that presentation with zoning, special use, and site plan concerns, and then we will open it up to questions and comments from the board before taking a consensus vote, asking if the village board is in favor of the concept. So with that, Director Jennings.
Thank you. As Manager Spondilis just mentioned, the concept review in this case does differ from the PUD style concept review, where the use itself is not really the question. In this case, you do have a petitioner who's proposing a use that's somewhat unique, so I would expect through their presentation you will hear a little bit of their use. But again, that's just a quick reminder. The question in front of you is the site plan that they're proposing and the appearance that they're proposing. They'll use that feedback to then present their formal application for the public hearing review that does deal with both the use and the site plan. So the petitioner is the contract purchaser of the Solex Academy, the former Cole Taylor Bank building at the northeast corner of Dundee and Milwaukee. They are proposing to redevelop the existing building for use as a multi-level spa. They're proposing an addition on the east side of the building, which you'll see in their materials. They're also proposing to enclose the existing drive-through teller area from the bank and make that an office area. What I'd like to do at this point is ask the petitioner to come forward, present the materials, and then I do have some staff comments from the review by the various departments that took a look at this concept site plan. So with that, please introduce yourself to the board.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jared Plasick with Manhart Consulting, and I'll be presenting on behalf of the petitioner, Seacastle Group, who is looking to redevelop the existing Solex building at the northeast corner of Dundee and Milwaukee. As was touched on, here is the existing location. The existing building is the Solex building, which consists of 3 floors, with the top floor also being a penthouse, 5,000 square foot approximately, for mechanicals. That will remain in the proposed as well. This is a display of the existing building. As mentioned by Andrew, we will be looking to maintain the main portion of the building in its existing conditions. We'll be looking to reconfigure the inside of the building more so than the outside of the building. As can be seen here, here's the existing site plan. We would be looking to maintain the existing parking field to the northeast, be largely untouched, with the site plan improvements being to the west and the east of the building, the existing building, with the northeast parking lot remaining as configured in this site plan. Here's a brief project summary of what we are looking to do. We would be looking to convert the existing Solex building into a spa forest, which is a health club use. It would be taking the existing first floor and converting it into a locker area. Here, I will scroll quickly through here. So this is the existing first floor plan, which would be taking the existing first floor, making it into a spa area, and then would be extending on both the east and the west sides. So the top would be the west side, which would be converting the drive-through into an office space, and then the east side would be extending approximately 13,000 square feet into a lobby space with 2 large mechanical rooms on the north and south side of the building. Okay, going back to here. The second floor would be an indoor and outdoor pool area, with the indoor pool area as touched on in this site plan being within the existing building, and then the outdoor pool area being a deck on top of the first floor extension on the east side of the building, and then on the west side would be a small roof garden. And then finally, the third floor, which my apologies is not shown on this floor plan, would be the sauna area, service area. There would be a small restaurant and then restrooms as well. Total floor plan would be in the existing building is 70,565 square feet. As mentioned previously, we'd be looking to extend 13,000 square foot for a total of 83,000 square feet. And the parking spaces would end up increasing from approximately 400 existing stalls to 410 in the proposed plan with no change to the building height. This gives an overall view of what you would see from looking from above. You can see the extension of the building to the east with the outdoor pool area, and also the extension to the west and conversion of the drive-through that was previously on the site into a office use. On the east side, we would be looking to slightly reconfigure how the existing parking field is being utilized. It would be similar to the existing conditions, with the only minor change to the parking field being the introduction of a drop-off area for patron use to on the east side. And then on the west side, we'd be slightly expanding the aisle to the west of the building in order to allow for fire truck use. One of the staff comments that has come up, which will be also, I think, further expanded upon by Andrew, is a concern on the east side with the configuration of the parking. One of the items we'd like to point out is that the main entrance for this facility will be off of Milwaukee Avenue, so the large portion of the traffic will be coming from the Milwaukee Avenue area and making their way here, and then either parking in the parking fields, or should they need to drop off a patron, would drop off and then be exiting onto Dundee Road. So it is our belief that this 90-degree parking stall, or 90-degree, or this turning movement here is not as of major concern, because it is not going to be utilized as the main entrance to the facility. And one of the reasons it was being implemented in such a fashion was to avoid trying to make any large impacts to the existing topographic areas over here, which is used in the existing conditions as a floodplain, and there's compensatory storage there that would result in additional stormwater improvements being potentially required. So we were looking to minimize the impact on the existing area over there. And this is highlighted here. We've done a fire truck exhibit with the worst case scenario where the fire truck is still able to navigate through the drive aisle without having to go up onto the curbs or anything of that nature. Again, we stress that the main entrance is still off of Milwaukee Avenue, so this is showing a worst case scenario, but a better case would be coming from the other direction. I think at that, I'm now going to open it, or turn it back to staff for any further comments or.
Thank you. Yeah, that does pretty much sum up the major concern the staff had. We reviewed between fire and engineering, community development. We reviewed the access, and all three of the departments that took a look at this had similar concerns with the turning maneuvers that would be required to get in and out using that driveway. As a emergency vehicle, you can see the diagram that was displayed briefly. An emergency vehicle can do it, but it is somewhat difficult of a maneuver to make. Again, that's something that we can work with the petitioner on through the site plan process if it's determined that this project will go ahead. The other two concerns that were mentioned from the staff memo are the parking requirements. At this point, without doing a full analysis, we're not sure that the 410 proposed spaces will be adequate for the use. If it turns out that applying the strict standard from the code can't be met for this development, they would have to add a parking variation request to their special use request. We're just not quite to that point yet. And then it would be up to the petitioner to supply support to answer the standards for variation as well as the standards for special use. The last item that we had in the staff review was the use of the exterior building materials on the additions. The design guidelines of the zoning code, which is Appendix D of the code, does give some guidance toward not using stucco as a primary building material. In this case, it would be the primary building material on the additions. So the staff review of this suggested that perhaps a different building material might be more in line with the intent of the design guidelines. And just as a general comment on the elevation materials that were provided, it appears that the building is going to be power washed. There's no additional treatment of the facade of the existing building, and we just thought that we should confirm that with the petitioner, that is their intent before we move ahead with this. So those are the three main concerns from the staff memo. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the staff review of this.
May I interject to address two of those? Yes, the answer would be the intent is just to power wash the existing building. And as it relates to the parking stall count on site, we understand that the staff will be conducting their own analysis, but this isn't the first spa force that has been developed. This is the fourth, and they have had a similar development in Carrollton, Texas, that had a similar parking count. And in terms of the existing parking count being approximately in that 400 range, and they have never had an issue as it relates to parking at that facility. And they believe that this will have a similar use and a similar parking. And from what they have experienced, it's typically under 300 of those parking stalls are utilized at a given time. So they've never experienced any kind of problems with that existing facility.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Trustee Lang, followed by Trustee Vogel.
Thank you. I just had one quick question. This is a perfect time to incorporate the property directly to the east, the old Balling home that's back there. That property's basically useless, and it will continue to be useless. And this is a perfect opportunity to kind of absorb it all and really square off your property as well. Have you guys given any consideration to that property at all? I know it's pretty wet.
I think there has been some consideration given. I think you kind of highlighted one of the concerns with that property, which is just its feasibility from a development perspective due to the existing topographic conditions with that particular facility. It's definitely something we will continue to take under consideration. If it's something that we can potentially utilize and we believe will be a good fit for our property and an expansion, then it's something we will, pursue accordingly.
Staff, a question for staff, is there something that we could do to help that situation? I mean, the house that's up there now is pretty much a blight, and there was storage of construction equipment and so on there. What can we do to further mitigate the mess that's there?
I'm not sure there's much we can do unless there are code violations. There is at least one, if not more, existing current business licenses, correct?
They have, it's a long story, but they do not have a business license. There have been a series of businesses that have opened up there, and we've had to enforce the code from time to time as new businesses come and go. The short answer as to what we can do There has been requests by the Forest Preserve years ago, and we've made the petitioner aware that the Forest Preserve has had some interest in that, but it's a complicated process. So we can go back to the Forest Preserve angle again. The Forest Preserve happens to own a strip of the land through the middle of the farmhouse property, and the Forest Preserve has asked for consideration if this property were to be redeveloped, that they would at least have a discussion with the potential entity that would own it. So we'll go and make that connection again, and as I said, it's a long shot, but there's a possibility that the Forest Preserve may be able to assist.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, are you done?
Yep.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Trustee Vogel and then Trustee Papantos.
Yeah, just, you had mentioned you had one other location in Texas. You said you had 4 in total.
Correct.
Are there any closer than Texas?
Depends if you consider New York City closer.
Okay, yes, definitely do. Okay, the other question is, and just from my understanding, how does the clientele work? Is it membership only? Or is it open to the public?
Yeah, please.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Chan. I'm the founder of the CKS Group.
I'm sorry, what was your name, sir?
Steve Chan.
Hello.
Okay, I'm the owner of CKS Group. I'm the founder of CKS Group. This podcast is Park Forest. You have a different name in elsewhere, but this is very first of this kind. Okay, this is first one in the world. Okay, in 10 years of operation, there's one. They seen the big success in this business, and there's one copycat trying to build the same thing in New Jersey. But I opened the first one in New York City, not in Manhattan, the Queens borough, 13 years ago. And I went down to Texas. I built second one, third one in downtown Manhattan, not the Midtown Manhattan, 47th Street and the Park Avenue. And currently I'm building another one in Alexandria, Virginia, which is very close to the Crystal City, which that Amazon's second headquarters will come in soon. So this is going to be the 5th one. So my plan is I'm trying to build the same thing all, over the nation. Okay, that's my plan. And, I know you talk about the parking issue, parking requirement. Since this is very unique and new, there's no such thing as a parking requirement. But I could say this from my experience. I have 150 the parking space in Queens, and we have 300,000 visitors annually. Okay, we have the business in Texas is slower than this. We have 170,000 visitors every year, and we have 400 parking spaces. We never had any problem with the parking requirement, thing. So that the facility in Texas, we have 120 lockers, okay? Which means, the reason that I'm talking about the locker is that we cannot have more than 1,200 people at the same time because we only have 1,200 lockers. But here we're putting less than, the 1,200 lockers. We're building, I think total locker is 900? 800. 800 lockers. So which means at the same time, we cannot have more than 800 guests. So since we have the same number of parking spaces at the facility, I don't think we're going to have any issues with the parking things. So also I know you're going to bring up some traffic. I'm not sure if I have to bring this up. No. Okay.
So.
It's just membership, correct?
Oh, members. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Is it members only, or is it open to the public?
We have. But
I appreciate all the other information.
Mainly people coming with the daily passes. Okay, you pay the fee, you come in, you enjoy your day. Okay, and membership. Of course, we have annual membership.
Okay.
It's not that much. So mainly, majority of my guests are coming with daily passes. I mean, pay the admission fee like you're going to theater, movies, same thing.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Vogel.
any other question I can answer?
Trustee Papantos and then Trustee Rufato.
Don't go away. So you expect most of the people who visit would be on a daily basis, that I think I'll go to the spa today versus being a member? Is that what you?
Yes, ma'am.
How many people would you expect to visit each day, and how long would their visit be?
I will say 5 hours a day for each visit, but
5 hours?
yeah, because this is a huge facility. We said 70,000 square feet. We have a lot of amenities. We have bathing areas, men and women lockers, bathing areas. We're doing F&B, food and beverage. We have indoor spa pools. It's not a swimming pool, spa pools, we call it. We have variety of saunas. We have outdoor spa pools as well. Spa pool means we have cubicles. Okay, it's a big pool. We have a cubicle. We have a hydrojet. Power wash, just like power wash, that massaging all your body from bottom of your foot, thigh, belly, back, neck, that, we have that kind of functions, all like 30 different kind of functions. So it's not a swimming pool, it's very shallow, it's not very shallow. Deepest one is 3 feet, 4 inches. Okay, that's a standing type of hydrojet facility. We have a sitting type, which is 2 feet 8 deep, 2 feet 8 inches deep, 2 feet 6, 2 feet 8 inches deep. And we have a bathing area, which is only 2 feet, very shallow areas. So you're not allowed to swim around, you cannot dive, but you have a very unique cubicles, like, So you gotta spend some time to go through, try, all these 30 different, 50 different, functions, all different. Okay, there's no redundancy. Also, we have 7 different kind of saunas, wet saunas, dry saunas, finished with that jade, Himalayan salt blocks, wood from Japan, all different. So that's why I said average stay will be 5 hours, because you need 5 hours to enjoy all those things, meaning that you're going to eat something like that.
So if somebody goes on Monday, would they go every day of the week? Would you just go once a week? Or is this a special outing that you go once a month? Is it, what's typical for your guests?
It's like you doing some exercise, okay? You go to gym, LA Fitness Center, or Lifetime, you exercise, you sweat, and you kind of addicted. You have to go back. This is something like that too. You go there, you sweat a lot, because all our waters are tempered. We maintain 98 degrees. Some of them up to maximum high temperature is 104, like the bathing areas. So most of this year-round, okay? 4 seasons, even winter time, up in Chicago, Windy City, we're going to maintain 98 degrees of temperature in water. So you could go out, snow, rain, you just, you could just, but the answer to your question, we have most customers, weekend, of course, just like any other business, weekend and holidays. When school closed, because we are allowing their children to come in with all this, teaching middle school, kids in elementary school, they know this kind of place. They want to, they bring their parents to my spot. So when school closed, we are busy. Summer vacation, Christmas, Thanksgiving, any holidays, Saturday, Sunday. Okay, so in the morning we have a women, female guest. They send in kids school, they send in husband work, then they come and stay there. They stay there until they have to go out, prepare the food for their family or pick up the kid. They stay there. Then male customers, they come after work, like after 5, they finish their work, come here and enjoy until late and come. But Saturday, Sunday, and holidays, they all come together, family, with one car. I've been seeing that for past 13 years of my business. Yeah. And I'm gonna expect same thing.
What hours would you expect to be open?
8 to midnight.
8 a.m. to midnight?
Yeah.
And would you have a restaurant and want a liquor
Oh, yes,
license also?
Yes.
Would the restaurant be open to somebody who just said, I want to go
Normally,
eat? or-
other SRA, we stay open until 9 o'clock, with F&B, and all this, the water, amenity, we close at 11. So from that, people leave. We just, after the people leave, and yeah, so water, amenity, we close at 7, but by midnight, people all leave. Then our cleaning crew come in and start cleaning for next day business.
And I asked whether or not the restaurant would be open to somebody who just said, I want to go to the restaurant. In other words, I don't want to use the facility.
It's not for public. It's only for my guests.
For the guests who have-
Yeah, inside the facility.
And what made you choose this particular location versus downtown Chicago or anywhere else in this area?
Well, the JH, he's my friend, and one day he called me up, and about like 5 years ago, actually, this much close to the deal in Glenview. Now, I just passed by the area, it became some kind of storage. It used to be the blood bank building. I loved it.
Life Source, I used to work there.
Yeah, I was this much close to close that deal. And what happened was that, somehow something happened in between, that period, so I couldn't close the deal. But several years later, I got a call from the same guy. He's an attorney, he's my attorney, and he said, hey, I got to put the nice building in William, and why don't you come and look? And I came here, and I saw the building, I liked it. So I know that, nobody wants that building because all these the developers, they walked away because of the problem that they have. But, initial cost, building cost, I don't know. Should I get into that? No.
No.
To me, it was okay, because of that fact.
I mean, so you've been looking in this general area for some time?
This type of business, okay, the Asian population is very familiar with this, bedding house, okay, because we grew up that area. We don't have showers in our own house. Now, every household had the showers, but when I, grew up, there's no such thing. We have a public bathing area. Japan, China, Korea, same thing. So we have to go to public bathing area, take, bath, and come, that was a part of life. So all these Asian people are very, very, close to this kind of a culture. This is culture, okay? So I always looking for the location which is close to Asian community, Korean, Japanese, China, because general average Americans, they don't know what it is, okay? They don't go to bathing, public bath area, naked, and they don't want it, okay? So from my experience, it takes 1 year to educate general publics. But in the meantime, I want all these Asian people to come in and fill that gap until 1 year. So in Texas, the other location, 90% is general mainstream people, American, like ourselves, okay? But we start with a massive Korean population in the beginning. Then once I raise some admission fee, then they just walk away. Then our general public will come in. That's my experience. So I expect same thing. That's why I chose the Wheeling, because that's why I was looking for the building in Glenview, because they are close to Korean community, which is nice, Corkies. Nice is Korean, what's the name of the other town? I'm not familiar. I'm from New York, so I'm not familiar. There's a lot of Asian population. That's why Wheeling is close to those communities. So good. I have good chance.
And then the entrance to the building is only on the east side? That's the only entrance that you plan to have?
That'll be the main entrance for the building, will be to the east side for the general public, yes.
The only reason I asked is in the diagram, you said, somebody could drop somebody off and then they'd leave, but what if somebody just wants to drop somebody off so that they can get in, but then they have to go out and around to Milwaukee Avenue to park?
No, so they would be, there's the ability, we did like a turning, radius here, that there's the ability to drop someone off here, and you'd still be able to turn back around and park should you need to.
Okay.
So we took an analysis to make sure that that was possible, knowing that that is something that'll happen. But a lot of the times what they've experienced is, people dropping anyone off here is likely to then be leaving the site and not staying on site. Someone staying on site is more likely to be parking their car and then walking up using this existing sidewalk, which has been repurposed, and then making their way through the East Entry doors.
Do you know if that would be a right-in, right-out, or on Dundee Road?
This would be, there'd be no change to the existing access from what it is today.
It's been so long that anybody's used it, I don't know what IDOT would do, to tell you the truth. Andrew, do you know if this is floodplain, floodway over there at all?
Yeah, there is some, you're saying on the parking area or yes, there is floodplain and floodway on this property. And they are aware as the contract purchaser.
So you know that you have to work through that?
Yes,
Great.
we're aware that there will be requirements through the MWRD with the floodplain and floodway.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Trustee Rufato and then Trustee Kruger.
Actually, Mr. President, he answered my questions that I was going to ask, so I'm good.
Thank you, Trustee Rufato. Trustee Kruger?
Thank you. Thank you for coming to Wheeling with your idea. Most of my questions have been asked and answered. The only one that I had left was, I believe you mentioned that the parking lot, current parking area would remain untouched. I don't know what the condition of that parking lot is. Currently, would you be resealing and restriping?
It would be something that would be looked at and considered as we go through the development process.
That was the only question I had that wasn't asked, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee Kruger. So, Mr. Spondulis, what is the next step?
It's simply asking.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vito?
Yeah,
Trustee Vito.
what's like the daily fee, the entrance fee proposed?
Currently I'm charging in New York City, 50 weekdays, 60 weekend. Manhattan, $75. Carrollton, Texas, which is very similar to this. I expect almost same thing. Carrollton and here, up in Wheeling, we're charging 40, 45.
What's a monthly fee?
Oh, we don't have one.
Oh, you don't?
Yearly.
Yearly.
Charging like 2,500 for yearly members.
How much?
Okay.
2,500.
Is there any exercise equipment, or it's all spa, pool, and sauna?
We have a small fitness area, gym.
All right. Okay.
And we have the service areas. We have a bar right next to the restaurant. We're gonna have a juice farm. We call that juice farm, serving fresh juice. Yeah, things like that.
All right. Thanks. Thank you, Trustee Vito.
Mr. President,
Sir.
just a clarification. In your description, sir, you mentioned proposed site improvements, you mentioned accessible sidewalk improvements, and new parking lot paving and striping. And it says that it would contain 422 parking spaces. So that leads me to believe that there's going to be a new parking lot and striping.
Yes, the new parking lot and striping that it's referencing is the repurposing, if you can see over here, of the existing into that.
I would think that that whole parking lot would need to be redone. That has been in such disrepair for years, and it has been unused that that really needs to be redone. Plus, you probably have to, and MWRD is probably going to make you do some changes also. So I would think that the new parking lot the existing parking lot would have to be redone. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
So then I will just read my little part, which is what we ask before a consensus vote of every concept review discussion. The village board is being asked to provide non-binding feedback to the developer. The developer may choose to move forward regardless of the board's feedback. Is the board in favor of the concept?
Trustee Rufato?
No.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Hold on. Looking at some pictures here. You got a swim-up bar in one of these?
What's that?
Do you have a swim-up bar in one of these things?
He was asking, do you have a swim-up bar where there's a bar just
You can,
as
a
part of
bar
the
in a
pool?
swimming pool.
Walk up to
We
it?
call that aqua bar.
Okay, then yes.
There you go, criteria met.
And you are what?
I'm with you.
I was in favor of it from the beginning. It sounds fascinating.
Okay.
Sounds wonderful. This is similar. There's a Korean spa close by.
Yeah, the King Spa,
Yes,
Niles,
yes.
that's a bathing place.
Bathing place, yes.
Tubs, and
Yeah.
that's it. They don't have this kind of thing.
Yes, okay.
They don't. Many people compare my spa to, but
That's all they know right now.
Insult, I don't want people to
Well,
compare
we'll
my
see.
spa to
We'll see what you look like.
different.
We have a process to go through.
Size different, look different.
Okay.
People, a lot of investment, but they don't.
Go and talk to the Korean Cultural Center. They would be happy to hear from you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
So the board gave a favorable response. Director Jennings can walk you through the next steps, moving to the Plan Commission.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Item G, Clerk Simpson.
Item 13G,
Yes?
discussion regarding major site plan and appearance concept review of the Wheeling and Oak Shopping Center, Westin Outlet B, 751 North Milwaukee Avenue.
All set? Mr. Swandelis? The Outlot over by the...
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I was in the wrong section there. As we just experienced, this is a concept review, so I'll begin the process the same way we did in that discussion, and that is by reading the following. The current request is for a non-binding approval of this site plan and appearance. Feedback by the board will be used by the development team as a guide in the preparation of the formal development plan. The outcome of this evening shall not constitute a formal approval or denial of the application. The decision by the board tonight is non-binding and shall not provide the applicant from moving forward with the formal application. We will begin again this evening with Community Development Director Jennings giving a project overview and introduction of the petitioner, the petitioner's presentation, and again back to Community Development Director Jennings for zoning, special use, and site plan concerns. Director Jennings.
Thank you very much. As Manager Spondelis said, this is extremely similar to the last item, although the building in question does not have an end user associated with it, as you did in the last one. The building in this case is a speculative retail building. They do show a drive-through component at this time. The building is within the Westin PUD, although this particular proposal is not a PUD proposal itself. It is a very similar concept, site plan, and appearance review. The reason that the concept, site plan, appearance review is required is that this plan for the building differs from what was originally contemplated when the Westin PUD was reviewed and approved. Those of you who have been on the board for a few years will recall the last time we had a similar review for a building on the B parcel for the Westin. This is very similar to that in that if the Plan Commission and the board approve this modified version of this building, it could be constructed within the framework of the previously approved PUD. With that, what I'd like to do is have the petitioner come forward, explain what's proposed, and then I'll follow with some of the staff review comments.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Brett Webster, architect with Ware Malcolm, representing the property owners. Also have a civil engineer and real estate broker who's been working with the property owners as well. We propose a multi-tenant building, as you can see on the site plan, and as Mr. Jennings indicated, there are no specific users identified right now. The property owners have been motivated in the marketplace to actually construct this property to get some real interest, and that's what we've been engaged to do. So we have a flexible plan here that allows for a drive-through, which is a very attractive use in this marketplace. And because the drive-through works best on the north end of the building, that's where we located the drive-through window. We're sharing the parking lot access with the property to the south. And what we're looking for here is to reconfigure the access on the east side by removing two of the driveways that are already there to get the line of cars coming from the south into the drive-through lane, and then pass through the drive-through lane. And through some of the staff discussions, we've been asked to restrict that northern driveway to a one-way direction. So then we've asked to add a driveway entrance and exit at the northwest corner, just off of Milwaukee Avenue, so that customers can come into the property or leave the property from that northwest corner, as well as head back south and exit the property. The exterior of the building has been adjusted since we first started talking to the staff to follow the village's development standards. We're using brick and fiber cement panels as the primary materials. We've tried to vary the facade and to keep some flexibility from the north to the south to allow different types of tenants, different sized tenants, to be attracted to the property. Just another view, we've proposed some outdoor seating. There's some potential that there could be a mix of retail services and also traditional or restaurant uses. So we put outdoor seating as a potential. Some straight-on elevations of the facades, showing the mix and variety of materials that's called out for in the design standards. So that's kind of the highlights.
From the staff review, you'll see in the memo that we did a preliminary analysis of the parking. Just based on the history at this particular development, we always want to be sure that any new, whether it's an infill within an existing building or, as in this case, a proposed construction of a building on a pad that wasn't previously developed, we want to be sure that if you apply the expected parking demand for the particular use, that it will make sense within the overall context of the development. So We did do some preliminary analysis of this, making some assumptions that half of the building would be likely developed as restaurant, the other half would be likely developed as retail. We took the parking requirements specific to this PUD and applied them to that build-out scenario. Factored in that this pad would have 14 fewer parking spaces than the B and C pad originally was designed to have, and the calculation came out at a break even. So our analysis, at least on a preliminary basis with that assumption, is that it's essentially a wash. We expect the likely impact would be that anyone who's currently using the temporary parking on this pad would be displaced. So that would be employees, valet, et cetera, would just have to park in a more remote corner to the north of the hotel building. So from an overall net parking standpoint for the overall development, we don't anticipate an impact here. Beyond that, the comments from the staff review, the primary issue that we had with this was the convoluted access, and should this move forward, that's the main thing that we'd like to take away with this petitioner, is that we'd like to adjust the drives. We had discussed previously doing a one-way along the north end and trying to make sure that the circulation goes in a sort of counterclockwise fashion. I think it'll take some reworking of the site plan to try to figure out the best way to do that. So I don't want to necessarily get bogged down in the exact way that we'll solve that, but what I'd like to do, assuming this moves forward, is work with the petitioner and our planning and zoning staff to come up with an access plan that makes sense. I think that we have some concern right now that the pair of right-in, right-outs at the northwest corner might cause some people to make an immediate left, which could be potentially dangerous. So we want to work with them on that. I think that the drive-through traffic having to exit could be potentially bad for that business and repeat customers. If people have difficulty getting out once they get in, they'd be less likely to come back. So other than that, we didn't have any major concerns. Our planning staff has been talking to them regarding the use of the cement fiberboard in the sign display area. Not sure how that would hold up over time. It's not something we see much of. So as long as we can work with them on that, we didn't have any major concerns with the use of that material. And beyond that, we just we'll take whatever feedback we can get from the board and work with the petitioner regarding their development plan.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Mr. Esfandilas? Our turn?
Your turn.
Thank you. I am going to go first. I generally like to hear everybody else's comments, but when I looked at the traffic circulation, I'm generously going to say that this looks awkward. That's really my only concern with it. I think it's a neat idea, and it's certainly no reason to kill a project, but that really looks like something that needs to be addressed. And then Trustee Papantos, you had something you wanted to say.
Thank you. I'm just curious as to, I'm happy that something's finally going in there. That pad's been sitting there since day one of the Westin. I don't know how many years, but what do you expect to go in there? We got to have something to go on. I'm confused as to what's left in the general area that would want to go in. I'm afraid we're going to build this building and it's going to sit there.
I'm going to let Mario Malone from CBRE explain.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mario Malone. I'm with CBRE. This is my second go-around with this property. I previously listed it in 2015 for approximately 6 months. We had a different ownership at that time, had unrealistic expectations. Ultimately, my client purchased this property via auction in 2017. We've had a few deals come and go over the course of 2 years. Given the general dynamics of the market, its proximity to Lake County, and the real estate tax burden it carries, we have not been able to get anybody interested to get a critical mass of lease tenants to pre-lease the property prior to construction. We feel there's only one direction at this point, and that is to build this building. There's just too many uncertainties in the market when you're trying to pre-lease a property. So we went significantly down the road with a coffee user for that northern end cap. That's what really spurred this design. We went under lease with them. Ultimately, at their real estate committee review, they decided although they liked the project, the timing wasn't right, and they're looking at, potentially investigating this property in late 2020, maybe early 2021. So ownership's perspective at this point, after sitting on the property for 2 years, is we need to build the building, and hopefully once we build it, they will come. That's the motivation. Now, in terms of types of uses, so I mentioned, potential coffee, food users, perhaps, retail uses of sorts, whether that be cell phone stores or any of a number of retail uses, as well as perhaps maybe a service use or two, whether it be tax consulting or something else.
Okay. And then if you did start building, and you mentioned that they may come back end of 2020 or early 20, how long would it take you before you would be ready for occupancy?
Well, we talked about, from a design perspective, we're there depending on how the approvals go. Construction in the spring of 2020, breaking ground once the ground thaws, and I assume there's maybe a 8 to 10 month construction interval.
So you wouldn't be ready until early 2021 anyway?
Correct. Late summer, I would assume, 2020, maybe fall 2020.
Well, if you started in 2020 for construction and it's 8 months, you're...
Primarily fall, fall of 2020.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pontos. Any other questions from Trustee Kruger?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for coming with your idea. I agree with staff. The vehicular flow is difficult for me to try and maneuver in my mind. Can't imagine trying to do it in a car, competing with space with other cars. On your neighbor to the south, there's a Dunkin' Donuts on the end there, on the north end of that. I don't know if that's Lot A or C or what, but that one-way drive-through indicator on this, what's on the screen, is that their drive-through?
That is their drive-through.
That is their
That's existing today.
Yeah, drive-through seems to be a thing. It disappoints me that everybody's in such a rush that they just got to drive everywhere and nobody can sit in a brick-and-mortar place anymore and enjoy themselves. But that's just me. I think that's all I had. Other than I agree with certainly staff and President Horker's comment about the work with staff and,
sure.
and see what you can do about making that a little bit safer and make more sense.
We understand the concern. One of the concerns and why we hope we can come to a resolution on that access point in the northwest corner is that without it, all outbound traffic needs to funnel through the neighboring shopping center rather than using the existing access drives. So we understand that there would be a limited movement, making a left-hand turn. We would obviously post a no left turn sign there, and hopefully people would follow the rules of the law and make that right turn and use the internal or the access drives within the development to get to the light on Milwaukee versus cutting through the southern property.
I get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Rick Scardino still with CBRE?
No, Rick, I know him well. He was never with CBRE. Grubb and Ellis, and now he's with Lee and Associates. Yes, sir.
Mr. Svandelis.
Thank you. Again, just reading this for the sake of continuity between conversations, the village board is being asked to provide non-binding feedback to the developer. The developer may choose to move forward regardless of the board's feedback. Is the board in favor of the concept?
Trustee Vito.
I am. I just share Trustee Papanto's concern that there's a saturation over there. There's some vacant spots, but if you're not asking for any money from us, it's your risk, so yes.
Trustee Lang.
Yeah, I agree. It may be a little tough to fill some of those storefronts, but I'd like to see you try.
Trustee Kruger.
I agree with my colleagues. I mentioned it, and I even wrote it in my notes, and you said it tonight. It's a build it and they will come kind of a concept, and though I think speculative build-outs are good, I'm not so sure how well it'll be there. I still want to see you try and go through the process and work on this. I think it has merit.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes, same as what everybody else has said.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Good luck, sir. Now for the high point of the evening.
Oh, come on, I got to follow that.
Come on, that was good. I just thought of that. That was good. Yes, please, 13H.
Discussion regarding recreational cannabis zoning considerations.
Pretty well.
I'll pass it to you, Mr. Spondilis.
Dude Spondilis. Oh, man.
Pass to the left.
Thank you. As you know, the state has created the opportunity for municipalities to house dispensaries, growth facilities, and the potential for on-site consumption for the now legalized cannabis. Before you this evening are a number of discussion points that Director Jennings will present. I wanted to get ahead of it a little bit just to remind everyone that tonight really is a discussion. It's meant to solicit some feedback and direction from the board, because the next step is that the direction given this evening will go to the Plan Commission, where they will formalize a recommendation back to you for then you to codify at a future meeting. So with that, Director Jennings.
Thank you. Just first to give credit to the staff who actually worked on this. Our village planner, Marcy Nyes, is here tonight and did some of the background work, as well as our assistant director, Steve Robles, who both attended a session in Lake County on the model ordinance preparation, just to get some of the feedback, the lay of the land, so to speak, with municipalities who do have the medical dispensaries. It's not something that we have had to deal with, so I think the combination of the new aspects of the State Act, as well as the history from the folks who have had experience with medical dispensary, was very useful in putting this memo together. As Manager Spondilis said, the state has adopted the framework for the statewide issuance of multiple license types for what they're calling adult use cannabis, recreational cannabis, which would be in addition to the existing regulations for medical cannabis. The State Act has an effective date of January 1st. That is not when we would project the first businesses to be available in Wheeling if they're ultimately licensed by the state. As the memo notes, the state is going to roll these out in phases. Existing licensed medical dispensaries would be able to. I was trying to get through it. Didn't even.
It's always best when it's an accident.
I walked into that one. So existing medical license holders would be able to apply and get in line in front of new recreational cannabis license applicants. So it is possible that an existing medical dispensary elsewhere could apply for a secondary license and potentially be in line in front of somebody else who would be a new license holder for Wheeling. So we're still anticipating that it most likely be July before we would have a potential opening. However, we do need to have the zoning framework in place because anyone who's applying for the state licensing would also need local zoning approval. So without rereading the entire memo, the state is proposing several different license types. I want to go through those briefly and then mention one that wouldn't be licensed by the state, because our zoning analysis takes that one into account. Similar to dispensaries, similar to the medical side, there would be dispensaries and cultivation centers. The cultivation center on the medical side would be able to get a license to grow for recreational purposes. The state act requires separation of the two. There's different regulations pertaining to both, so they would have to be able to separate. Similar with dispensaries, they have different regulations on the medical side and the recreational side. So if they were in fact licensed to do both, the state act requires some separation for HIPAA purposes. The state act will cover regulations for each type of business that are a given. On top of that, a municipality can enact zoning restrictions or prohibit these uses outright. That the municipality cannot prohibit the individual use allowed by the state, but could elect to prohibit these types of businesses from locating. That is not what the staff is suggesting in this case. We are suggesting zoning restrictions similar to those that you had previously approved for the medical dispensaries and cultivation centers. So the license types, again, contemplated in the state act would be for a cultivation center, a craft grower, which is a new license type, that doesn't have a exact comparable in the medical side, an infuser license, dispensary, and then the additional business type, which we discuss in our memo, that it would not be licensed by the state, is the cannabis cafe or lounge. The village, just to summarize the recommendations that staff had with respect to this, we want to start off with the framework that we have in the zoning code already. We think that based on the experience of some of the municipalities who've had medical dispensaries, that if recreational dispensaries are going to be allowed, that the medical dispensaries be the basis for it, but then based on experience of towns like Mundelein that had some concern with these businesses being tucked away in industrial areas, that they be brought out in locations comparable to recreational. So that's one of the suggestions that was made. So with that, John, I don't know if you'd like to go ahead and go point by point with the four main areas.
Yes, so there are a few of them, and just to break them down so that we can organize the conversation amongst the board. The first is, what types of recreational cannabis businesses does the board wish to permit? Cultivation center, craft grower, infuser, dispensary, and cannabis lounge/cafe. The staff recommendation is prohibiting the cannabis lounge use except in cases where the lounge is adjacent to and operated by a licensed dispensary. So effectively, it would mean all of them in the list, but as described for the lounge cafe use.
Let's do these one at a time. Would that be good?
Sure.
It's a discussion. Sure. Or you want to read them all and then we'll just
I
start
agree.
at the top?
Let's do that. Let's start with this one.
Comments from the board. I want to just keep this kind of open, and it is a discussion, and it's giggle worthy, but we have to go through it. So, Trustee Lang.
I'll jump into this one. So, by definition, would it allow a typical restaurant, I'm going to throw one out there, Spears, to be able to serve something like a special topping, if you would, on one of their desserts? Something simple like that?
No, and of course I'll defer to Attorney Froehler, who, it should be noted, he and his firm wrote the white paper, I'll call it, that the IML, the Illinois Municipal League, actually uses throughout the state on the topic of legalized recreational cannabis. So I think it is worthy of noting that we have an expert in the room. The short answer, though, is no, you cannot hold a liquor license and allow on-site consumption in the same facility.
So there's going to be a lot of clarification for this going forward. It seems like the state has done a pretty decent job outlining what, mostly the zoning for all this. It's pretty outlined already. So For clarification, then, it would be let me get the definitions, like a dispensary or something like that, that could have a cafe built into it, and then do exactly what I had said, some topping on a dessert.
There is, you don't have to be associated with a dispensary.
Okay.
You could have something similar to a vape lounge that can be a cannabis lounge. The issue with those facilities is you really don't, from a municipal standpoint, you don't derive any sort of benefit. There's no taxation there. It's something that is really a great unknown. So if we focus on the dispensary, which is obviously going to be heavily regulated, a lounge or an on-premises consumption site associated with a dispensary, in our opinion, is going to also be pretty closely monitored by the owners of that dispensary, so as not to go off the tracks. It's a place where the products can be consumed that are purchased at the dispensary.
Yeah.
So
And then
brownie, there could be smoking there, and it would not violate the Illinois Smoke-Free Act. Those places would be exempt from the application of that act. So it's what you purchase at the dispensary or a dispensary can be consumed at the lounge.
Okay, and that's where safety comes in, because you could have a non-designated driver in that situation, and then that's where the police department comes in.
Yes.
So do we want to avoid those types of situations where you're encouraging the use, but then also making it easier for somebody to get behind the wheel, which is a problem? So, just a question.
No, I think that's a fair statement.
I mean, I'm throwing out, like, that doesn't seem to make sense that we would make it so easy for that to happen, because that's opposite of what we want to do.
As staff put this together, of course, we had a number of conversations on this topic, and it escapes my logic as to where the profit center is or the need really for a lounge would come in. That said, community development has received many, would you say many calls?
Yes.
Already for inquiries about lounges. So the staff recommendation that connects should the board even consider a lounge, staff's recommendation would be to connect it only to a dispensary. That would then eliminate all those phone calls of people just wanting to open a lounge, and at least try to address some of the issues. But as you state, there's some inherent risk associated with on-site consumption.
I would say at the very least, the staff recommendation on my end then.
Trustee, I'm sorry, is that it?
Yeah.
Trustee Papantos, then Trustee Vogel.
Thank you. On the lounge, if someone had their own, would in this scenario where it's connected to a dispensary, would the dispensary be forced to allow someone to bring their own product in, or would it be more like a bar that you're not allowed to bring your own alcohol in? Does that question make sense?
It's a good question. It's really kind of an open question. My opinion is that if you purchased it legally and it was packaged correctly, you probably could bring it into one of these places where you can consume it on site. It's not like you're, that's my opinion. I think it would work that way, but it's still an open question. You know, that has not been directly addressed, I can tell you that. I haven't seen that directly addressed.
And then as far as Trustee Lang's comment, and I somewhat agree with him, but I question if we're worried about designated drivers, then are we going to have the same worry about every tavern, liquor, video gaming cafe, I mean, any place you go and drink, it's up to people to be reasonable and adults and understand that you must have somebody who can drive. Common sense rules. You go with the driver if that's your choice. In this scenario, then, we would be limiting the number of cafes and lounges based on any limiting factor we have on the number of dispensaries, correct?
Yes, and in addition to that, one of the factors in that formula is proximity to any sensitive buildings, meaning churches and schools, as well as the distance between any two dispensaries. So between those two factors, triangulating where these things are located, I think, is going to be self-limiting in and of itself.
And then churches, schools, what about home daycares?
That can be considered a sensitive location.
Because they can pop up all the time.
It's pre-existing locations. A home daycare that comes after a dispensary is not going to create a problem. They're going to locate at their own risk. So the dispensary cannot locate any, you're going to come up with a distance relative to these sensitive locations. I've seen 500 feet. I've seen 1,000, 1,500, whatever's comfortable after the zoning process. But that's relative to pre-existing sensitive locations.
So the state does not require any, that's up to us to put in the...
That's up to you. What the state requires is that cannabis-based businesses such as dispensaries cannot be any closer than 1,500 feet from one another. That's what the state law provides. Your proximity to sensitive locations is going to come from your zoning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pantos. Trustee Vogel?
Where is actually the sales or the 3% tax? It's only on dispensaries?
Yes.
So why would we want any of the other three? The cultivation center, the craft grower, the infuser? Why would we want those if we're not, there's no benefit to us to have those?
Well, the other three end users would be similar to nearly all other manufacturing in the village, meaning most of our industrial sector is not creating a product that is directly sold out of the building, which means we're not getting any taxes beyond property taxes. So a cultivation center, an infuser, all of those would be paying property tax in the same manner that any manufacturer of a nut or a bolt would.
So we would get property taxes and nothing else? Would the value of the property taxes, I mean, there's so many unknowns. I mean, are we going to have additional police to patrol these areas? I mean, are these areas going to be prone to robberies? Somebody go in and rip off a few plants for their own use, et cetera? What rules and regulations would we put in place to ensure that, they're safe and we're safe from these areas?
There are security requirements for most of the...
Yeah, right. The state does have security requirements, particularly for dispensaries, of course. And I think the end user would recognize the risk and build in their own security. These would be essentially not unmarked buildings, but you wouldn't know what's happening inside unless you knew what was happening inside. Certainly I can let law enforcement answer whether they believe there's an additional risk for, say, a cultivation center. But initial studies from other states do not indicate that you are at risk by having cultivation centers, particularly craft growers that are small.
Okay, thank you.
And as far as our regulation, Trustee Vogel, we're not going to be able to license these facilities other than a very general business license is what we're thinking. And we can certainly inspect the building to make sure it's compliant with village codes. That's really going to be the limitation of our regulation, other than zoning, of these facilities. The safety, the cameras, the security systems, that's all going to come from the state as they evaluate the license application.
Do we know on a cultivation center what type of property tax classification they would fall under? Is this agriculture? Is this manufacturing?
The Department of Ag licenses it, I can tell you that.
That's right, but I'm not sure in terms of the assessment, what level it would be based on, for example, how Cook County would look at it. We'd have to, I don't think that's been, at least it's not, I haven't seen anything related to that at this point.
Because that's a big difference in the amount of property tax we pick up.
Thank you. Actually, Trustee Kruger was next.
Thank you. we're still talking about Cannabis Lounge, right? We're
Yes.
doing these one at a time? Okay. So my first question is, if we say no to cannabis lounges today, can we ever say yes to it later, when we know more about this uncharted territory?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
So originally, I agreed with the staff's recommendation on the cannabis lounge prohibition, with the exception of it being associated with a dispensary. I started thinking about, like you said, Attorney Frollo, vape rooms, cigar bars, hookah lounges. You know, they're allowed, you know, currently. How could we say no? But, I mean, if I want to, you know, party with my friends, I'm going to invite them to my house, because I can now. So I
You
don't.
can definitely say no. I mean, the ability is built into this law.
Right.
To say no to these types of facilities.
But we could say no today, prohibition entirely, forget.
Sure.
You know.
Then you could change next year.
And we could change next year.
6 months from now.
I'm just wondering if maybe, you know, until we know a little bit more about the, you know, because I do like the idea of it being with, you know, a dispensary and only be associated with a dispensary, but, you know, I just don't understand why people wouldn't go in and buy it and go home and smoke or eat it. So why do you need the special place for now? So I would be inclined to prohibit lounges entirely until we know a little bit more. Thanks. Till you go on to the next thing.
All right, Trustee Vito?
Yeah, are we sure that inquiry to all these lounges is just the lounge without actual buying the product? Because if you take the other examples we're talking about, a hookah lounge, a vape lounge, or a cigar bar, cigar lounge, you buy the product there. I mean, you can get a cut fee if you have like a special cigar or something you want to bring, but the majority of those things, I mean, you don't bring your own tobacco to a hookah shop, or you don't bring your own vape, and you normally don't bring your own cigar, so it just seems weird that people have an interest in, hey, I'm just going to have a lounge, everyone brings their own stuff, and they sit around.
We're fairly certain, because they are not required to get a license to have it. So the other business types, you'd need a license from the state. For this particular one, you don't. So in order to open a lounge, you would just need to find a location and get the zoning approval through the municipality. You wouldn't need the state involved at all.
What you just, the business model is to charge people a fee to sit inside a smoky lounge?
Yeah,
But they can't shop for any weed or anything?
As managers finally said, the logic is hard to follow, but that's the inquiry we're getting the most of. And so we just want to make sure that any framework that we put out there does address that use in a way that the board is satisfied with.
Trustee Vito, there's no definition of a cannabis lounge in the Act, but the Act allows for businesses to provide for on-site consumption. A cannabis lounge is not licensed by the state. The only facility that can sell cannabis is a dispensary, which has to be licensed. So a cannabis lounge, we're fairly certain, is just a place where you can go with your product. And I think this goes back to Trustee Papanto's question a little earlier. It's kind of becoming more and more clear. Go with legal marijuana and
pull up a beanbag chair and turn on a lava lamp.
And I don't know what the business model is, Trustee Vito, how they make money. I think it's pretty unclear at this point.
If it had a swim up on it, go. All right.
Trustee Rufato, you were polite enough to ask for permission.
So, Mr. Fondelis, you mentioned that there was a security framework that was, is it in the laws about the security that is, can you give me an idea of what that is?
Oh, there's cameras that are required, surveillance, electronic surveillance. I don't have much more in terms of, I've seen security referred to, mainly in terms of cameras, and you can't even sell product if your cameras aren't working. So there's cameras all the time that are required. So I think that's going to be a big part of security. As far as fencing and
No, I'm talking about,
I'm not sure about that.
I'm talking about entrance into it. Are there levels of security getting into the place?
Like a buzzer or
Yeah. So
yeah, that kind of detail isn't called out.
I've been in one
Yeah.
in Colorado, and you have to go in, and it's like at a security exchange, not a security, I'm thinking of currency exchange. You go in and you put your license underneath I assume, a bulletproof glass, and then they take your license and scan it, and then they let you in. You know, so I was just wondering if it got to that level.
There's lighting requirements, there's hours that are listed. I have not seen in terms of ingress, egress, how that's worked out. And I think each individual facility, when they apply, are going to have to make their case to the state why they're qualified, why this is safe, how the money is going to be protected, you know.
All cash.
Yeah, there's many considerations, and I don't think there's going to be a cookie cutter formula for any one facility.
Thank you.
Left, right. So let's answer this right now. Recommendation is prohibition of cannabis lounge use, except in cases where lounge is adjacent to and operated by a licensed dispensary. Does this sound acceptable to the board? Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Kruger?
Prohibit.
Absolute.
Absolutely.
Trustee Lang?
Yes, I'm good with it.
Yes as recommended or yes
Yeah,
prohibit?
recommend it.
Trustee Vito?
I'm fine with either way. I think the idea is stupid. I don't know how you'd make a business out of it, but if that's what you want to do, I guess. So, yeah, it's,
But not a standalone, so it's not a standalone. It's connected.
right, I don't care either way. I don't see how the other one is viable as a,
How do you make $1?
right, I mean, you have to charge someone to come in and they don't get to shop in it. It just seems stupid, but if somebody wants to do that, I'm not really against it.
Well, if it's not a standalone, they're going to the dispensary, going through another door and going in there. And when they use what they bought, they're going to go back and buy more. That's how they're going to make the money.
Yeah.
So with the...
It's like going back to the bar for a second drink, Joe.
No, he's saying he doesn't understand how some, like,
Well, we're not talking about standalone. We're talking about
No, I
only
get that,
being-
but we're talking about prohibiting a standalone. I'm not saying I'm in favor of a prohibition of a standalone, I just think it's a dumb idea.
Oh, okay.
But if somebody wants to do it, and it's a business model, and maybe I'm wrong, and there's a market for just sitting around and smoking and not shopping for your product, then okay. But I don't think, I go, like I said, I go to a lot of cigar places. I don't think it'd be a very good business model to have a cigar-free cigar lounge. It just, I don't get it, but if there's a market, I'm not against it.
Mr. Spondilis?
We can only assume that the idea is that they would sell food. So it would essentially, food. No, really, that it would be
Brownies.
essentially a restaurant without a liquor license.
Oh, yeah.
I'm totally down. No.
I mean, right?
That's a different deal.
There's no
Well,
other.
you can get infused items too.
No, they can't sell the product. Next door can sell the product.
So if Joe's Pizza
dispensary
wanted
can't.
to open
The dispensary
a lounge
can.
Oh, okay.
next door,
Exactly.
Well, it's the same thing. You're going next door to buy something, and you bring it next door. If you're buying something infused, you would go next door, buy it, and then go into the lounge and.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
But again, that's just an assumption. Obviously, there's a lot left to the imagination here.
creative business models. So you're either way.
Right.
Trustee Papantos?
I'm, yes, as staff wrote, attached to a dispensary, and no freestanding at this point.
Trustee Vogel?
No, prohibit it.
I'm okay with the as written. Did that give us direction?
It did. That would be 5-2.
Okay.
Okay, and again, this is all just giving direction to staff in order to prepare the conversation with the Plan Commission so that they can go through the same process and make recommendations back to you. I would assume that we will be able to answer some of the questions that come up tonight for the Plan Commission so that when they deal with this, they have even more information, and that way you have a better opportunity to consider when it comes back to you. So the next topic is basically zoning. Where should the village allow the cannabis businesses? The recommendation is to allow cannabis sales in commercial and mixed-use districts with cultivation over a certain size allowed only in industrial districts. So So cultivation in industrial districts and sales or dispensaries in commercial and mixed-use districts. And please remember that there are built-in distances that become part of this formula for where exactly within the districts you allow these dispensaries can open.
So I'm going to exercise some executive privilege here. Like Sam's Club would be a no?
As a cultivation center?
Yeah.
Hi.
It's great, big, power,
It is not.
easy to secure.
I assume Sam's.
That's a retail.
Is not.
Commercial.
Industrial, right. So, no, that's correct.
I always thought that would be a great idea for that building.
Can't you rezone it?
I suppose.
I'm just asking.
It was a good question.
Be hard to change the zoning there.
Spot zoning.
Because it's commercial.
Right.
You got other retail stores right next to it. You can't change it to industrial.
Oh.
It's, right.
Anyway,
It's a retail center.
Thank you.
back to a normal process. Trustee Papantos.
Question for dispensary, and I'm a yes to commercial and mixed use, but on the distance to sensitive areas is because as the act is written, Attorney Ferrillo, it states that they don't give you a distance, so we have to come up with one. What are we coming up with? You know, if we start saying 2,000 feet, we'll never see, you know, because there's going to be a daycare in there someplace.
I mean, you've got to come up with something that you think is reasonable. And the other thing you can come up with is a number. The Act says the local governments can limit the number of the types of cannabis-based businesses that are allowed. So you can come up with the number of dispensaries you'd like to allow.
That is, in fact, the next question.
Okay. But your first question is, what's the distance? And, you know, I think you're going to need maps. Maps are going to have to be pulled out. You're probably not going to be in a position to make that decision tonight. Plan Commission's probably going to have to define that a little better for you in terms of coming up with a recommendation, which I think is going to, in large part, relate to the number.
Right, so the thought for tonight is to give staff and the Plan Commission the zoning areas that you are okay with, and they can then make a recommendation. They will put up the maps. They will deal with all of that, I almost said in the weeds, all of that detail, and then come back to you with their recommendation. So tonight was far more broad, simply to give them direction as to the types of zones that you are wish to allow this.
And I am, as I said, all for mixed use and commercial. Businesses that open here, I want businesses to be successful. If you take a dispensary and hide it in an industrial area where nobody can find it, it's not going to be successful. This is a legal option. It is just like a liquor store, a Benny's or a liquor barn. And I don't want to start playing games of saying, well, we're going to put it, you know, off on, you got to make 3 turns down Chaddock and Foster and Wheeling, whatever, and nobody can find it. The business won't be successful. So I'm for the commercial and the mixed use, and I would want to at least give the Planning Commission some guidance that I don't want to get ridiculous on the distance from sensitive uses. Probably the same as any liquor store.
Comments, Trustee Vogel? No?
No.
Trustee Vito?
What am I considering right now?
Allowing cannabis sales in commercial and mixed-use districts with cultivation over a certain size allowed only in industrial districts.
Yeah, that's fine.
Trustee
Agreed.
Lang? Agreed. Trustee Kruger?
Agreed.
Trustee Rafato?
Agreed.
Thank you. Trustee Vogel? Yeah, no?
Agreed.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
No comment.
Did you change?
And you agree?
Oh, yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You agree?
Item.
It might just be hanging in my head, but it's just, if you have a structure like that Sam's Club that has so many prohibitions on it, I mean, this is actually, barring the language of this sentence that we create, I mean, not that I would be eager to see something go in there that would eliminate a sales tax potential, but
I think there's a market reality that the cost of occupying that building would be higher than the cost of occupying an industrial building elsewhere in town. So I would think it would be market-driven, simply that they would go.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to make you feel better about not losing the potential of a grow facility, it seems.
I've lost votes. Next up.
And then third and final direction for this evening, should there be a limit on the number of recreational cannabis businesses? And again, so this is, I keep repeating it, but this is just direction.
That's
really
the third one.
to the next.
There's one more after that.
There is?
Yeah. Tax.
Oh, it's not on my list. You are correct. I apologize. So third of four. Thank you. So again, this, I think, will play itself out as the details of the distances between and from sensitive areas are finalized. But just so that everyone has the information moving forward, should there be a limit on the number of recreational cannabis businesses? And I suppose if the answer to that is yes, we should provide a number, at least just to start out. Staff was thinking either 2 or 3, which again, as you triangulate all the other things that will fall into the formula, that's probably about the way it would work anyway.
Comments, or just want to jump in? Trustee Lang, then Trustee Kruger.
So I was thinking about it's hard to place an arbitrary number, and that's what we're going to do right now, is throw an arbitrary number at it. But food for thought is we want to avoid, I think I want to avoid what happened with the Stella's situation, where someone came in and kind of cornered the market, thank you, for on all these. And so I'd like to avoid that where possible. Stella's is a great organization, but they took all those licenses and because they jumped on it fast. But I think, through this whole thing, I mean, the board is keeping an open mind about this, and let's do this better than the other towns are doing it. Let's figure this out and challenge ourselves. Let's do it better. So I don't know about throwing a number, a limit on it. But I do know that I want to avoid a chain coming in and taking them all.
There's an equitable component to this statute too, and I don't think the state's going to allow one license holder to get multiple licenses in the same community. There's an equitable component to this law that is going to, I think, solve that issue.
Good. So given that, I don't know what number to throw at, because it would be...
We could skip the coming up with a number and use these other parameters to establish, the possibilities, because the geometry will be sort of limiting as well.
Correct.
The distancing and the sensitive areas.
Oh, that's what I was going to use my time to say, is that
So would you prefer
I was going to say too, I agree with that.
Just postpone a number and
Yeah,
use
let
geography.
let the geography dictate, and
And ultimately, we can just say no.
yeah, we can change it anytime we want.
Yes.
Right, we can just say no to an establishment coming in.
So skip the numbers, Mr. Rufato.
Yes.
Trustee Kruger.
right, the map would help a great deal, so
Lang.
let's postpone.
Vito.
No cap.
No cap. Papantos.
No cap?
Vogel.
Yes.
I'm in favor of that as well. And the tax is the last question.
Quite simply, staff is recommending 3%. I'm hoping you all agree.
That's the max?
Trustee, yeah.
3% is the max, yes.
Got nods from everybody on my right. Rufato, Kruger, Lang, yes.
Yep.
Vito,
Yep.
Papantos, Vogel, yes. Yes.
What's the possibility that the state will allow a raise in the tax in the future
For themselves or for us?
for us?
There's an awful lot of tax on this product. I think that's probably slim for now.
What's the possibility, the state is going to be the collection agency of this 3%? What's the possibility they're going to take a collection fee?
A fee.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Have they mentioned anything about that?
Not yet.
And everybody's talking about the state. This is still illegal for federal purposes. Do you think once this starts rolling out with more states, the federal government's going to look for their share?
Yeah, absolutely. It hasn't happened yet. I mean, we're the 12th state?
13th.
12th state? I don't think so.
No?
I have a question. We talked a lot
Other than
about...
income tax eventually on the business, federal
Yeah.
income tax.
Oh, then they'll score. Trustee Kruger.
Sorry, we talked about dispensaries and numbers and limits, but we didn't really speak much about infusers and craft growers. So are those industrial zones only?
That's the thought, yes. That
Okay.
those would be,
And so they're not a part of the limit? The limit of number you're asking for is dispensary?
correct.
Or are you asking for a limit on each
It
type
could be
of
either, but we
license?
were talking specifically about dispensaries.
Dispensaries?
Yes.
Okay.
But the answer is it could be whatever you want it to be. You have the authority to limit that.
It does seem like the other uses are more, well, it's not a use, it's an industrial preparation site.
What is an infuser?
So,
It
Got to
would,
get it in the gummy worm somehow.
yeah.
So it's somebody who takes
Yes.
some
It's a
product and...
manufacturing process
Watermelon.
to instill the THC into the product. Gummy bears,
Bakery.
bakery goods.
And they're licensed and regulated so that it's a set amount that's infused?
Oh, yes. Yeah, you're talking about THC levels?
Yeah.
Yes, there are varying levels, but those are all, one of the arguments for legalizing cannabis was exactly that, is that it is protected both on the growth end and on the user end, so that you know what you're getting. So absolutely, all of that is very highly regulated.
Thank you.
That concludes that portion of the evening. That brings us to official communications. Clerk Simpson, you have something.
Yes, I do. We're going to have the Wheeling Village President, Board, and Clerk invite you to the All-You-Can-Eat Pancake Community Breakfast being held on Saturday, September 28th from 8 a.m. till 10:30 a.m. at the Fire Station Number 42, 1 Community Boulevard. We will be serving pancake, sausage, sweets, coffee, orange juice, and milk. Admission is a donation of a canned good or other non-perishable food item for a local food pantry. Parking is available at St. Joseph the Worker Church lots, immediately east of the police fire station. Cash donations will be accepted and will be donated to Wheeling Helping Hands, a tax-exempt organization dedicated to assisting local charities in the village of Wheeling. And the village trustees and the president will be cooking breakfast, so
When is that?
Saturday, September 28th at 8 a.m.
show up at 7.
What?
The workers show up at
Workers show
7.
up at 7.
Oh, and trustees and presidents show up at 7.
The clerk at 6 o'clock.
I'll be there at 7:30, okay.
Are there any other official communications?
Yes.
I owe everyone an apology for not showing up at the employee appreciation dinner. I meant no disrespect. I had to work, though. Trustee Papantos.
Very quickly, I wanted to congratulate management analyst Eileen Breyer, who has received sorry, I have to read this, accreditation through the Illinois Emergency Management Agency's Illinois Professional Emergency Manager Program. So she has obtained more disaster management skills and practical experience that will help our village. I don't think people realize how much work that all of our staff puts in to totally learn and become accredited, and I think they deserve some credit on that. So thank you, Chief, and please pass that along to her.
If there is nothing else, I'm supposed to talk closer to the microphone. You have before you the bills for August 15th through September 11th, 2019. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Vogel, second.
Second.
Trustee Rufato, roll call, please.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
And President Horker?
Yes, we do have an executive session this evening for the purposes of pending, probable, or imminent litigation, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee or employees of the village, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, and setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the village. I need a motion to go to recess.
So moved.
Second?
Motion,
To executive
trustee.
session?
For executive session, yes.
Oh, you said recess.
Yes, recess to executive session.
Oh,
Sorry.
relaying?
Yes.
Did you get the motion?
No, that was relaying, right?
No, that was
No,
Rufato and
Rufato.
Kruger.
Oh, I'm
You're asking
sorry.
me, I'm saying yes.
Rufato,
Rufato.
Kruger. Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, it is 8:49. We are recessing to executive session. We'll be back in a while. You guys are welcome to stay, or you can go home.